Welcome, everyone. We are just going to start right now. Welcome to our third Well-Connected event. I would like to begin this meeting with a land acknowledgement as part of Wellspring's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and with the hope that this acknowledgement will inspire all of us to take action to support Indigenous communities. I would like to honor the land and acknowledge that we are on the unceded ancestral land of the first people of Seattle, the Coast Salish people past and present. I want to honor with gratitude the Salish people who have taken care of this land and the land itself. We give thanks for nurturing us, giving us air, and providing us shelter on this land. I would also like to honor those who were forced to come here for forced labor. We honor these ancestors and give thanks. So welcome again. My name is Mo Malakutian. I'm honored to be a moderator of today's event. I work for Amazon full-time, and I also teach for University of Washington. I have privilege to be involved with Wellspring for the past 6 years, and I serve on associate board and Wellspring board. During the event, if you have any questions, I encourage you guys to use the Q&A chat box, put all of your questions there. Otherwise, I'm just going to be the person asking questions, and that's not what you want for the event. Before I ask our panelists to introduce themselves, I want to say one personal story. In 2015, when I kind of invited to Wellspring, the first thing that I saw and kind of was very close to my heart was the early learning centers that is a topic of today. They showed me there, they showed me how they provide this caring for young children that kind of experiencing at the very young age the homelessness and the trauma. And then they told me they are being taken care of there and they are being healed there. And that was very close to my heart. And that has been my personal story, how I became now a 6 years of Wellspring supporter and a big fan. On that personal story note, let's just to our amazing panel. We have 3 people here. I personally know them. They're amazing, Bevette, Meeghan, and Arlesia. Please introduce yourself and also tell us how are you connected to Wellspring?
Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Bevette Irvis and I am the Senior Director of Childhood Services here at Wellspring. And I have been leading the Early Learning Center for a little over 30 years. So I've been here just a little bit.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thanks for joining us today for the conversation. My name is Meeghan Bergmann. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Early Childhood Mental Health Clinical Supervisor at the Early Learning Center, which just really means I have the joy and honor of supporting the social emotional well-being of our children, families, and our staff. And I've been at the ELC working on Bevette's amazing team for getting close to 5 years now.
Thank you, Mo. I'm thrilled to be here. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Arlesia Bailey. My preferred pronouns are she and her. I'm the recent past chair of Wellspring Board of Directors. I'm also the Senior Director of Community Health and Development at Seattle Children's Odessa Brown Children's Clinic. Absolutely thrilled to be here. And to what you said, Mo, once you learn about the Early Learning Center, it's really difficult to get it out of your system. You just have to be a part of it.
Completely agree. Let's just show everyone a short video, and in this video we kind of walk you through a classroom. Currently we have 4 classrooms and we are serving 30 students, and all of our children are between 1 year to 5 years old. And one thing that I wanted to emphasize, we have been doing this for 33 years. So this early learning center has been open 33 years, providing specialized care for young children whose families are experiencing the effects of homelessness. So let's just watch this video and then we can jump into the conversation.
Art area. So each kid has a bucket with all their art supplies, all the paint, all the stamp pads, and different manipulatives, different paper. They can come over here and grab what they want, but each one has their own thing, so nobody has to touch anybody else's things. This is the writing table. They can come here and do whatever they like to do. This is our art area where we sit and we paint. That they can access, and then we have quiet toys under here they can also access and bring over to the carpet. There's also slashes as our circle time area where we do our music and movement and dance around and do our learning with our alphabets and counting the numbers of the days. Our schedule is listed here, and who's here today, how are you feeling today? As you come over here, this is our music area where the kids can play different instruments, or we can plug up a device and they can listen to music and dance to it. Over here is our block area, where we have different types of blocks, animals, different type of trains. We have cars, different type of people, and we also have different type of blocks that they can build whatever they want to build on. Which slashes over to our kitchen area, which is our dollhouse here. And over here is the kitchen area where they have different things where they can cook. Here's their bathroom. They come and use their bathroom. Got a little sink and a little toilet.
I think we probably can finish on this video the whole panel today. So touchy and emotional. Thank you and everyone who participated in creating the video. We really appreciate you. But I think we can now jump into our questions. Again, I wanted to encourage all of you guys, if you have any questions, please put it in the Q&A. But let's start with why. Why do we have early learning centers? Why does our community need the early learning center?
All right, Mo, I will start us off. So to our knowledge, Wellspring Early Learning Center is the only early learning center in Washington State that specializes in serving children and families impacted by homelessness. And we provide a high quality, trauma-informed and culturally responsive early learning environment for children. And so, with that said, homelessness is a regional issue. So we serve families not only in Seattle, but also outside of Seattle as well.
Thanks for that, for starting us off with that too. And like Bevette was speaking to, one of the integral values in the way we approach our work at the Early Learning Center at the ELC is we have a trauma-informed care model, which really just means we approach the work and acknowledge that the children and families that we serve have often been impacted by trauma and toxic stress, which I'll explain a little bit more in depth in a moment. And we also believe deeply that often people who are called to this work often are called to it because they have big hearts and care deeply about supporting others. But often we also are called to this work sometimes because of our own experiences of trauma and our own experiences of healing and want to make a contribution to the healing of others. And so our trauma-informed care model also really focuses on supporting our staff and our providers as they are in relationship and caring for the children who are impacted by trauma. And again, really at the center and the core of our trauma-informed care model is that we believe again, deeply that children have been impacted by trauma. It shows up in the classroom, and that we heal through relationships. So everything we do in the ELC is based in relationality, and know that we co-create healing in partnership with the children and families and with each other. And we also know, just speaking to why our community needs the Early Learning Center, our community needs high quality early learning for all children in our community. I'll say that first and foremost. And like Bevette said, we're currently, to our knowledge, we are the only early learning center in Washington state that specializes in serving children experiencing homelessness. And we're learning so much about brain development in science these days too. So we really know that there's so much rapid brain development that happens in the first 5 years of a child's life. And so we really have this really beautiful opportunity to really help build the foundation of a child's brain and to really support their emerging sense of self in these early years. And we know that stress impacts that. So if a family is experiencing housing instability or homelessness, that inherently is a stressful experience for the family and for the child. And we know there's 3 kinds of stress. So positive stress is, for example, today, we're having this amazing conversation with you all. We're on a Zoom conversation. I'm feeling a little bit nervous, maybe a little bit stressed. That gives me enough adrenaline to make sure I'm prepared to share with you all about our work. And then there's a kind of stress called toxic stress, which means that it's persistent. It's extreme. So if I'm experiencing homelessness, trauma, food insecurity, and really know that actually if a child experiences those external circumstances, that they have a supportive, caring relationship, that buffers their experience of toxic stress and it becomes tolerable. So that, I think, like, again, really speaks to we are looking to buffer experiences of stress and trauma for families through relationship. And that's at the core of everything we do. And one more, again, Bevette and I think could talk for days about this, but I will name, we'll probably go into this more in depth, but a lot of people don't know about this, but preschool expulsion rates are actually 3 times higher than kindergarten through 12th grade expulsion rates. And that often is because if children have been impacted by trauma, they might show up in a classroom and have challenging behavior, such as using explicit language, hitting peers, showing aggressive behavior. For example, if they're exposed to domestic violence at home, they might be trying to make sense of that in their classroom environment. Then often they're kicked out of their childcare or early learning programs. And so the Early Learning Center, we have an explicit no expulsion policy, which really explicitly disrupts that social injustice we're seeing around preschool expulsion. And it's a racial equity issue because young Black boys are expelled at the highest rate as well.
And I think also because we have the no expulsion policy, that's why it's really so important that Meeghan is embedded in the Early Learning Center, because teachers need a lot of support regarding what behaviors the children are exhibiting in the classroom and what might be coming up for them in relationship to the children's behavior. So having Meeghan as a resource that can be in the classroom in the moment with teachers to guide them through those behaviors, as well as meet with them outside of the classroom, is really crucial to the work.
Yeah.
Thank you both for very comprehensive response. I think 3 things that stood out for me. 1, we are the only org. I wish we had more kind of organization who does that, because I'm sure we have more children that we need to take care of. The second thing is we have professional. I am a teacher, but I'm not qualified to be in that classroom. The professional needs to deal with those children who has experiencing trauma. And then the final thing is the children between 1 to 5 years, the brain, that foundation that hopefully we can take care of them to prevent anything that later on is happening to them. Let's just go to the question of logistic. How does the Early Learning Center work? What is the eligibility process? What is the enrollment? And give us more about how everything works.
Okay, I'll start us off again, and then Meeghan could go a little deeper. So, so we serve children ages 1 through 5 who are either currently experiencing homelessness or have recently experienced homelessness. And as I said previously, we're located in Seattle, but we're serving children throughout the region. Meeghan?
Yeah, and also families, often families hear about us through word of mouth. So maybe their friend or family has been served by the Early Learning Center. So if they're experiencing homelessness themselves and have a young child, they might reach out directly and say, I'm interested in enrolling my child, so self-referral. We also have a housing program at Wellspring as well that works with families experiencing housing homelessness. So they refer families. We have really longstanding relationships with community organizations like Odessa Brown, which Arlesia is connected to. Public health nurses refer children to the ELC, just lots of other community partners too. And our family support specialists support families through the enrollment and intake process. I think that's another thing, like our family support specialists are the first point of contact for our families on enrollment. And someone spoke to it really beautifully. We had a family speak to it really beautifully the other day of like, basically the care and compassion and connection the family felt during the intake process really helped them to know that when I enter these doors, these people are going to care for me and for my child. Well, they're going to care for my child, but they also are going to care about me. And we also ask questions about families' trauma histories, different experiences. And our family support specialists share that you can share as much as you want today and you can share as little as you want, but we're going to take time to build a trusting relationship where you feel like throughout time, you might bring more to this relationship. And the parent also just shared that allowed them to know that this center also has experience working with people who have experienced trauma, and it's not going to be too much for them to handle for me to share some of my experiences. Yeah, so I just think really meeting families where they're at emotionally from that first moment of contact. And I would say, oh, go ahead with that.
No, I was going to say another thing that was so beautiful about that story with the families that, you know, she in that moment in her interaction with the family support specialist realized that, okay, this place isn't just about my children, you know, my child. It's also, seems like they're going to be caring about me as a parent as well too, and that really struck her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'd say one other thing, like Bevette mentioned earlier. Family homelessness is a regional issue in our area and our state too. So sometimes families might be staying in a shelter in Seattle when they get connected to us at first. And affordable housing is really hard to find in Seattle. So if folks are getting permanent housing, they often are being housed outside of the city of Seattle. But we have some families who take 2 buses from Auburn to have their child enrolled at the ELC because they're connected in a relationship. But just for us to think about it as a community, you know, what that means when we have family homelessness is a regional crisis we're experiencing.
Thank you so much. Whenever friends, family ask me, what is Wellspring? You're on the board. What is this? What they do? And if people doesn't know, Wellspring does many things, and Early Learning Center is just one of them. But because I'm the most proud of Early Learning Center, I start with Early Learning Center. It's very easy to describe. We are taking care of children and everyone loves kids. So that's why it's so unique and it's so important for me. But I wanted to hear from our panelists, what makes Wellspring's Early Learning Centers unique and why? Why you are like, is close to your heart as well.
Well, I would say that, you know, anyone leading an early learning center feels that their program is the best program, but no, the ELC really is the best program in this state of Washington. I'll just go out there and say that.
Bevette, I agree with you 100%.
So, and at the ELC, we're really about upholding the dignity of the families. And so the families that we work with, you know, they have had a lot of interface with different social service organizations, different social service settings. And oftentimes those interactions have not been positive. They've had a lot of negative interactions that have created additional trauma for them. And so when our families walk through these doors, you know, my goal has always been for them to have the best social service experience that they've ever encountered. And so, you know, going back to what Meeghan said, you know, we're very relational, and we're really want to have a community that really cares not only for the children, but for the whole entire families. And I think families, they get a sense of that, like Meeghan was saying, from their first interactions with the family support specialist. And then when they come in, well, they're not coming in now, we'll talk about that later. But previously, you know, interactions with teachers and just interactions with the staff, they get a sense a field sense that they're really cared for and that their backgrounds are honored and respected.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I think that dignity piece and like Bevette speaking to, I think like I always have this moment when I first step into the ELC and when I step in like every day to work here, it's this felt sense in my body of like, there's love in the environment. I think we don't often talk about this, and I've heard some people speaking to it more, but there's deep love and care. And I think our children and families feel that. I feel that as a member of this team. And I think that allows us to really, again, like Bevette speaking to, really uphold and treat our families with deep dignity. And I always have this moment of thinking about, you know, we're really entering into a relationship with the children and really seeing their humanity, saying, I want to see you, I want to understand you, I want to understand how I can support you. We're saying that same thing to our families. I want to see you, I want to understand you, I want to, if you're, you know, getting frustrated with me as a provider, upset about me, like about something, I'm asking what's happened in your past, in my mind, I'm asking what's happened in your past experience that's impacting the way you're showing up in this interaction today. And with our parents too, it's saying deeply, I want to see your humanity. I'm going to respect your humanity. I'm going to honor it. And I think that's something we also strive to practice with each other, because we can hold the humanity of children and families. But we also have to be holding each other's and honoring each other's humanity for the work to be sustainable. And I think that's what often gives the work like this feeling that's often, it's hard to put into words, but it's really embedded in love and care. And like Bevette will say, we're always on a journey. I think the ELC, we're pretty authentic and real about, we're on a journey around trauma-informed care. We're on a journey around diversity, equity, inclusion work. And we all have strengths in relationship, and we all have strengths that we bring to this work, and we all have struggles that we bring to this work. But we can really be authentic about our strengths and support those. We can really also be authentic about where we're struggling and how we navigate when we have disagreements or when we have growth moments, and how do we work together then to move forward. So I think that ELC is also a really professional community that has deep expertise, and that we're very human and we're always learning.
And I think another thing, I mean, I can't leave this question without talking about the staff. We have an incredible staff here, and the work is it's hard. It's really hard work. And so, you know, I really admire, you know, staff who come here every day, you know, they come here, they work their butts off for the children, for the families, you know, go home, decompress, and get up and come and, you know, and come right back again to do the work. It's hard work, but it's great work, loving work. And we have a blast doing it. I mean, we have fun all the time. Laughter is always in here, even though it's hard work.
That's so nice to hear. I think I'm going to encourage you guys ask questions in Q&A, and I think I saw one question in the chat box I'm going to ask our panel very soon. But before that, I just wanted to bring Arlesia. She's so quiet right now, and she's our former fearless chair. So Arlesia, I know we have a partnership with Seattle Children's Odessa Brown Children's Clinic. Can you tell us how does this partnership impact the program and success of the students?
Yeah, Mo, thank you. I'm happy to do that. But at first, I just want to acknowledge, how can you not listen to Bevette and Meeghan and not get excited about this work and the awesome things happening through the Early Learning Center? Our partnership with them is just an example of one thing. So as Seattle Children's only primary care clinic, the Odessa Brown Children's Clinic has been honored to partner with Wellspring for more than 20 years. The Early Learning Center exemplifies our clinic model of providing quality care with dignity. Currently, we deploy a nurse practitioner there to provide much needed services to students like well child checkups, social and emotional assessments, immunizations, and anything else you might get through your own primary care doctor. We know that investments made in the promotion of prevention and early identification of health problems can impact learning later on in life. We also know that children impacted by trauma need stability, and that their earliest life experiences can affect their behavior, abilities to learn, and lifelong health. In our case, these services are embedded into the Early Learning Center with a team that the students get to know And as students graduate from the Early Learning Center, many of them continue to access services at Odessa Brown, where there are staff members there that they've become familiar with. And it builds on our commitment that we've made to these kids. And Mo, I just want to go back to something that you said earlier about the fact that everyone loves kids. I think the other important piece of that is we've all been kids, and we know how important it is to have strong relationships, strong, healthy relationships, and how that helps to inform your life path going forward. So honored to be doing this work alongside the Early Learning Center.
So good to hear. Let me just add one kind of follow-up question on that. How does this partnership with Wellspring Early Learning Centers fit into the Children's Odessa Brown Clinic focus on race and social justice?
Yeah, so as a clinic, our key performance measure is school readiness. We're all aware of the inequities that exist in our educational and healthcare systems. Working with the Early Learning Center supports our clinic's efforts to continue to go upstream. Verbal interactions between parents or caregivers and young children in play and reading are critical for the development, but less frequent in families with low socioeconomic status. Adverse life experiences put children at risk for chronic diseases, and providing parents or caregivers with skills to foster nurturing relationships with their young children results in healthy family brain development, healthy brain development and future school readiness. So all of that tied together, builds on what we believe the Early Learning Center staff and their staff do well. And that's really their strength-based approach with students, promoting social, emotional skills through play, teaches kids the much needed self-regulation skills, and quite frankly, it disrupts the preschool to prison pipeline that Meeghan mentioned earlier. Our most recent experience with COVID-19 really just amplifies a lot of the gaps that were already existing in our systems. And in that case, I think you'll hear more in just a little bit about how the Early Learning Center was able to pivot in the face of COVID, still continuing to support their students, even in a remote space, in an effort to provide a seamless experience and support to the students that are assigned to the Early Learning Center, which again is especially important to kids who are experiencing trauma.
Thank you, Arlesia, for everything you have been doing for Wellspring and for the board. I really, really appreciate you. There is one question that I wanted to ask Bevette or Meeghan. The question on the chat box is, what is your relationship with Seattle Public Schools?
Well, our relationship, well, let me back up. So a lot of early learning programs, early learning centers have, I think, have a stronger bond with Seattle Public Schools than we do, going back to the fact that we serve children who live outside of Seattle. So not all of our children that are going on to kindergarten go to Seattle Public Schools. So those that are, our family support specialists, they work with families in partnership to get the children connected and registered for kindergarten. And that's in Seattle Public School as well as other school districts as well too. And so usually when children are, before they're transitioning into kindergarten, is making a connection, with the kindergarten teachers so that they can visit. And of course now during this pandemic, things are being done differently. Last year, it was really sad that the children who graduated from the ELC, they went on to kindergarten, but kindergarten was in their living room or their bedroom. They were at home. So they missed out on what they were looking forward to in relationship to, oh, I'm going to school with the big kids. I'm going to be riding the school bus. They didn't have that experience. But going back to the question, we are connected to Seattle Public Schools and other school districts as much as possible. And similar to other early learning centers, we have a charge to prepare children for kindergarten. And for us, we know that the social emotional piece of it is crucial to children's success in kindergarten, similar to what Arlesia and Meeghan were saying earlier, because we know also the children that we serve that are predominantly children of color, they're the ones that will get into that pipeline to prison, as Arlesia and Meeghan both were mentioning earlier as well too.
And I would just say, like, also, you know, we do partner with Seattle Public Schools if a child is maybe has developmental delays, and through our partnership with a nurse practitioner from Odessa Brown, maybe the family has done a developmental assessment and they recognize, oh, this child could qualify for developmental preschool through Seattle Public Schools, which is early, you know, individualized support for the child through the school system. So that's a conversation our nurse practitioner is having with the family. Our family support specialist is checking with the family about, and so often then that connection is made, and a child might, you know, do the morning at the ELC and then go to developmental preschool at a Seattle Public School, you know, school as well. And then also, you know, families, like Arlesia is saying, a family might connect with Odessa Brown at the ELC, and then they stay with the Odessa Brown throughout their school years too. And, you know, we worked with some families that maybe they are still experiencing housing instability after they leave the ELC, or maybe have a younger child at the ELC and an older child in Seattle Public Schools. And often it's about finding where the resources are for families. So sometimes it's accessing a child who's experiencing homelessness in Seattle Public Schools qualifies for McKinney-Vento, which says the family's experiencing homelessness, and sometimes has access to different housing resources. So it's working alongside systems and school systems as partners to best serve our families too. So we've connected with Seattle Public Schools in those ways. And always the Seattle Public Schools should also connect with us around if they have children, young children, that they think would be well served at the ELC.
And I think that's a crucial point you're making too, Meeghan, about, you know, sometimes we have younger children here and their older siblings are in Seattle Public Schools. So, and then oftentimes too, you know, families might be encountering some challenges with navigating certain things. And so they will lean on our family support specialists to help them navigate that system as well too.
Thank you. I think we have some attendees that just attended. I just wanted to summarize what we are talking about. We are talking about Wellspring Early Learning Center. What we do, we provide specialized care for young children that has a families that are experiencing the effect of homelessness or other trauma. Our caregivers are very specialized. Again, I cannot be qualified to be there, although I am a teacher. Why we do that is very important to heal the brain of a children that they are between 1 to 5 years that are experiencing homelessness. So for those who just joined, that's kind of the summary. My next question is, now for more than a year, we are dealing with a coronavirus and pandemic. So how has the Early Learning Center managed to support children during this pandemic?
Oh, Mo, you're taking me back to a year ago. Yeah, we're almost coming up on that 1 year anniversary. So, you know, when the pandemic hit, we weren't quite sure what to do in the beginning, similar to a lot of early learning programs. You know, I mean, in all honesty, staff were freaking out. It's like, okay, what is this? What does this mean? What's going to happen? And then not only did school districts started closing, a lot of early learning programs started shutting down as well. But here at Wellspring, the leadership of the organization made a conscious decision to not lay off anyone in the ELC, because that's what was happening in a lot of early learning programs. Teachers and staff were being laid off. And so since that decision was made to maintain employment, then, you know, it came up with, okay, we need to figure out what staff are going to be able to do, because children will not be here, and for teachers, that's their primary focus, is working in the classroom with the children. So, you know, we pivoted. For example, our baby boutique that closed to families, to clients coming in, so, and shifted to a personal shopping model. So staff in the ELC became personal shoppers in the baby boutique. Staff also.
Bevette, can you tell us what is baby boutique?
Oh,
for people who doesn't know.
Thank you. The Baby Boutique is our free family store to families experiencing homelessness. So pre-pandemic, families were coming in with a referral from their external case managers or internally from our family support specialists here in the Early Learning Center or from our housing stability specialists. And they would actually go in to the store, which is set up like a retail store, and they would have a shopping experience where they picked out the items that they needed for their children themselves. But now we have shifted to a personal shopping model where families or their case managers are calling up and placing an order for families, and then family staff shops for the items, bag them up, and leave them in our lobby. So if you drive by our building, anything you see in the lobby, those are items that are waiting for families to pick up. Okay, so worked in the baby boutique, also worked at the lobby desk, and at that time as well too, our agency, we were getting some funding in for COVID relief. And so teachers and our family support specialists shifted to administering those funds. And this was totally out of their realm of expertise. This is something that they had never done, but they were up to the task. And so they started doing that. They teachers also reorganized their classrooms. All the classrooms were repainted, so that when the children came back, they would be coming into nice, freshly painted, reorganized classrooms. I'm trying to, and then also during that time, so we were closed from March through June. So during that time, the family support specialists, everybody was busy working. They were still in contact with the families, supporting them around their whatever individual needs that they were having. And so for the families, they have their children at home with them. So now they're also now being teachers. And so there are things that they just, whatever they needed to talk about, the family support specialists were there to listen and to support them through whatever they were experiencing. Teachers were still planning curriculum, sending that home with families, calling, checking in on the children, checking in on the parents, sent home a lot of food cards, a lot of curriculum kits so that the children could have things at home to engage, keep themselves engaged along with their families, books and toys. And Meeghan, what else am I missing?
Yeah, that's a lot. But I think you've said it beautifully. But also I think there's this theme around, a theme around the ELC's work is we meet children and families where they are at metaphorically. So really that meant just, again, really relying on that relationship we had built with this children and families and saying, what is your experience at this moment in the pandemic? What are your needs? How can we support you? And that looked different for every single family. Some families wanted to check in with their child's teacher once a week and really share what was happening. Some people wanted, one phone call and let me know when you're reopened. So just really honoring families' needs and being really responsive to that. And we also found, I think that, again, it's thinking about how are we supporting these parents while they're home with their children during this pandemic time. So often I heard teachers and our family support specialists share sometimes that they called a parent and it was just on the phone and they talked for an hour and it was like the deepest conversation they'd have with that person. Because I think, I don't know, my experience through this pandemic too is like we all just, we're looking to connect. A lot of us are feeling isolated and lonely. And so just to be deeply listened to and to be heard, I think is a really powerful, just really powerful in this moment. So it was also about how do we support the adults that are caring for the children in this environment. I'd also say for us, for the ELC, that also meant how do we support our staff socially and emotionally as our staff is also navigating this collective trauma, this collective pandemic, while they're also supporting the families that are navigating it. So how do we support the well-being of our staff and each other as we navigate this moment too? And we reopened. That's something, we have a childcare crisis and an early learning crisis in our country right now that's impacting childcare and early learning is, I believe is keeps our economy going. It's one of the most important essential parts of our whole, our communities, and it's so undervalued. And a lot of places have had to close down, like Bevette said, because they're not part of a larger agency that made a commitment to maintain employment so that we could continue to serve children and families. So that's a big deal. So I think the fact that we reopened and we have safely reopened I'll toot our horn. I'm proud of us. And that took a lot of support. Our nurse practitioner helped us think about how to reopen in a safe way. how to rethink our policies and our practices to mitigate COVID risk. So yeah, we supported our students.
Yeah, and I would say we were really intentional about reopening. So we took the whole month of June to plan our reopening and to put protocols in place in relationship to COVID, following CDC and public health guidelines. And also, we weren't sure how the children would be coming back because they had been gone for 3 months. And, they came back like they were here the day before. And I think that speaks to the deep relationships that we have with the children and also with their families too. And I think because we have that deep relationship with families, when parents do certain things, we understand, because one mom, she drove up and she's like, here he is, take him. And we're like, okay, all right. We totally understood that. It's like she's been home with her son for 3 months, being mom, and that's a big job, being mom, as well as being teacher. And so she was happy to go and have some time just for herself.
Thank you. There is one question on the discussion of the chat box, and I think that goes to Bevette or Meeghan. That they ask, as you noted, this is a very tough work. Can you share a story of a student that inspires you, is dear to you at work?
I'm thinking of one little friend in particular who he was, this goes back to also to mom needing support around parenting because, she started having children at a young age. And so being firm with her children, giving guidance, that was a learning space for her. And a lot of parents, struggle with parenting. And so I think with this child in particular, I think this is a situation where the village of the ELC came together to support mom and to support this little boy, because there were times where he just flat out would not listen to his mother, and then we had to have conversations. And so my routine with him is when he came in the mornings, he had to stop in my office. And, I would check in with him to see how his night went, to see if he had used his listening ears at home, to see if he and his brother had engaged in any battles, because he would come in with battle scars because, 2 boys going at it. And so then also, just doing that nightly overnight check-in, then, setting the expectations for the day about, when you go to the classrooms, your teachers are waiting for you, need to use your listening ears and all of that. And so, then someone, who would walk him down the hallway to the classroom. And then when he got to the classroom, the teacher would be doing the same routine of setting the expectation for the day. And of course, he would tell everybody, yes, I'm going to use my listening ears and I'm not going to hit anybody. Well, his little body, that lasted for maybe a good 5 minutes. But then, as he went along, he was getting better at, self-regulating, himself, right? And so I think the cutest part of this story that stands out for me is I wasn't here one morning, and he came in looking in my office for me. And so another staff person said, oh, are you looking for Teacher Bevette for your morning routine? And he was like, yeah. And then he's like, where is she at? And she's like, she's not here today. And so the other staff person said, so would you like me to have the talk with you? And he's like, yeah. So she's going through it with him. He's like, no, you're not doing it right. You're not, you need to say it like this. And then you need to hold my face like this, because Teacher Bevette holds my face like this when she's talking to me.
I love that story, Bevette. That child actually was one of the first children I ever worked with when I started at the ELC. And I think like what Bevette's, as I'm listening to Bevette speak, I think these themes are, it's knowing that every relationship with every child is different. So Bevette had her way of connecting. When you walked in the morning, she said, I see you, I'm going to connect with you. And really that we know that children, they want the adults in their life to have like limits with them to help them feel safe and secure and stay emotionally connected to them. And we know that all parents, all humans, we all struggle in relationship. And for parenting, that means that we all struggle in parenting or caregiving. And so really that message of here at the ELC, we are going to take charge and have limits so you are safe, and we're going to stay emotionally connected, and supporting mom to find her own style of what that meant for her too. And I worked with him from probably when he was like 2 years old until he went to kindergarten. And like Bevette saying, he had these moments, these challenging moments throughout the day where he might hit a child, or he might run out of the classroom or something. And he had already as a young child, he was saying, I hit my friend. Was that bad? Did I have a bad day? Am I a bad kid? And I think like Arlesia is saying, we have to remember we were all children at some point, and this child is not going to have conscious memory of that, but he's really those wonderings, unless we kind of intervene as adults and say, you're a smart kid, you're a kind kid, you're a compassionate child who's brilliant and funny, and you have hard moments, we all do. That becomes the voice in his head. So it's either I'm a bad kid, I'm a bad person, or it's I'm a person who has lots of strengths and I struggle, and I'm learning how to express my feelings in a way that's going to keep me in relationship. So I think that's like, that always stands out to me about like, what is, what that sense of self is evolving in young children, and how everyone from Bevette's morning greeting of, I'm so delighted to see you. I'm going to help you learn how to use your listening ears and let you know I care about you. That has such a lasting impact. And I always joke with this child that by the time he left for kindergarten, I think he could express himself more articulately than I could as a therapist. And the way that he expressed his feelings, asked for what he needed, had deep relationships and connections with his friends was, transformational. It really impacted. I think it impacted all of us as staff too, that we're always learning in relationship with these children. They're teaching us every day.
And I think another thing about this child as well, so he was a brilliant artist. So I know there are times when our development staff would ask for children's artwork, and the teacher, particularly like with creating cards, he would be the artist for the card. Yeah. Can't wait to see his future.
Hey, Mo, listening to Meeghan and Bevette, I just can't help but think about how better we would all be as a society if we just wore and used our listening ears.
Yes.
And knew that people cared about us.
That's right.
Yeah.
I want to start having my morning 5 minutes with Bevette talking.
I'm not doing this, Mo.
That's fine, but I think on a serious note, I don't know how much that kid life has changed because of just that 5 minutes checking with Bevette, and different life I'm sure that kid is going to experience in future just because of those service that you provide. So again, my all gratitude to you guys. I think it's time, I am emotional, so it's time to ask the main question of the maybe the event, and I wanted to start with Arlesia. How can we support the Early Learning Center? How can the community help to support more kids to make an Early Learning Center even better than what it is right now?
Wow, that's a great question. Just answering from a partner perspective, I'll just say, if you have not visited the Wellspring Family Services website, I really encourage you to do so, just so you can get to know the full range of services provided by the agency. If this is sort of your first introduction to the Early Learning Center, please lean in and learn more. Consider referring students to the Early Learning Center. And I know I certainly want to encourage you to donate stuff. That's really important. So things like diapers, wipes, etc. But I think even more than important than stuff is I would really encourage you to consider making an unrestricted gift to the Early Learning Center. And I think that's really important because unrestricted gifts provide Bevette and Meeghan the most flexibility to respond to the changing needs of the kids and community. I mean, who would have predicted a pandemic and back in 2019 as they were thinking about the next year? You just can't plan for that sort of thing. But I think that just cash on hand, nimbleness to respond to the needs as they show up.
Thank you.
Yeah. And, to follow that up, Arlesia, whenever I have the opportunity to share, I have to share that, we have a classroom that has been sitting vacant for about 3 years now, and that's due to budget constraints. And so, we have an ongoing wait list, but we also have an empty classroom where we're not serving children. So that goes back to what you were saying, Arlesia, about funding. So in order to serve more children, we need to have funding to be able to, sustainable funding to be able to open up the additional, the classroom that's been sitting vacant.
So Bevette, are you saying that we have an empty classroom that if we have enough funding, we can open, and then we have a lot of need for that? We have a waiting list that there are trauma kids that need to be helped, but we don't have a funding to open that extra classroom that we have.
Yes, it was open at one point, but we didn't have the sustainable funding, so we had to close it.
Thank you, everyone. I also want to say, I feel like we all have a part in supporting the young children in our community too. So I think, like Arlesia and Bevette are talking about, really giving generously. And I like to think about a meaningful gift is different for everybody. So a meaningful gift for one person might be $500,000. A meaningful gift for someone else is $5 once a month or $5 once, one time. And really knowing that, like, we invite everyone to be a part of the ELC community, whether that's through a meaningful gift, that's a money donation, or it's really sharing with your community about the ELC's work, about the crisis of family homelessness, about the importance of early learning, and really realizing as a community and as a nation, state, city, county, we need to deeply invest in high quality early learning because all of us will benefit. So just really becoming a champion for early learning and for our young children and families. Because I think COVID has taught us that we're all in this together, and unless we care for all of us, none of us are really going to be well. So we're looking forward to you being a part of our community.
Yeah, I definitely echo that awareness is very important. Please talk what we do in Wellspring and share that with anyone you know. Bevette, did you want to add anything else?
No, well, the only other thing I would add to that is that going back to the pandemic, this pandemic has highlighted what people in early learning have known forever, and why we do the work is that early learning is essential to keeping the economy going. And so this pandemic has really highlighted that. And so, post-pandemic, I really want people to hold on to that knowledge that early learning is essential. It's essential for the whole functioning of society, as well as great outcomes for children.
Thank you. I encourage you guys, we are wrapping up. So if you have any other questions, please put it in the chat box or the Q&A. There is one question: how many children does the Early Learning Center serve, and how many more with the extra classroom? I start answering, but please chime in, Bevette and Meeghan. I think we have 4 classrooms. We are now serving 30 students, and I assume each classroom serve 8 to 10, but please correct me. Did I fail?
No, you didn't fail. So currently we have 4 classrooms open. So we're licensed for 50 children. So that's a capacity for 10 children in each classroom. And we have 2 teachers in every classroom. So we have a very low teacher-child ratio as well.
And that's a very interesting thing. It's not like there is one classroom with 30 children and 1 teacher. It is very small size, each classroom maximum 10, and that's how, and again, professional expert child caregiver. Again, I encourage you guys, we have maybe 5 more minutes, ask your questions if there is anything left, but I just wanted to thank you guys for your time, 1 hour spending with us and support of Wellspring Family Service. Hopefully it was useful. Hopefully we were able to share one of our service at Wellspring, the Early Learning Center. If after this event you are interested to see the previous events, is going to be shared in the chat box, the link to the second event, the second WellConnected event that we have. I also want to encourage you guys to put a mark on your calendar for our fourth WellConnected event that is going to happen on April 20th at noon. Again, it would be a great event, and we talk about more Wellspring and what we do here. If you have any follow-up questions or any comments, please email it to us at the email address that is going to be on the chat box, wellconnected@wellspringfsfamily.org. Please do that, and we will be happy to answer any questions or any other comments that you have. So on this note, if there is no questions, I'm going to again be thankful to our panelists. You guys, again, Meeghan and Bevette, does a very, very inspiring job, and please continue serve our community and kids. Arlesia, thank you so much as a board member that I constantly learn from you. Thank you being part of this panel. And again, all of our attendees, thank you so much for joining. And we would be happy to see you and hear from you more. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.